Hello everybody and welcome back to the second episode of How to Adapt into Canon. This month we will be discussing the first part of the Darth Bane trilogy, Darth Bane, Path of Destruction. Unlike last video, which covered the original Thrawn trilogy all in one video, I will be splitting up the Darth Bane trilogy into two parts. First, we will be discussing Darth Bane, Path of Destruction in this video in part 1, and then in the next video, part 2, we will be discussing The Rule of Two and Dynasty of Evil. But before we get started, please hit that like button down below, subscribe to Star Wars Labs for Star Wars content minimum 3 days a week, and comment below and let me know what you think of this video. If you're interested in the Book of Boba Fett, then make sure you check out our spoiler reviews of each of the new episodes every Wednesday morning, dropping at 8 a.m. PST. This week will be Chapter 6, and our predictions and speculation videos for the following week's episodes on Fridays, dropping at 8 a.m. PST also. Lastly, before we start, I want to clarify that the intent of this video and the How to Adapt series is to look at the original work as told during the pre-2014 Legends era of Star Wars storytelling, then to compare and contrast its components with what has been presented to us by the current canon in place at the time of making this video, then finally to retell the story in a way that's as close to the original source material as the canon will permit, while simultaneously adding and or subtracting the necessary components of the original work in order for it to fit as seamlessly as possible into the Star Wars canon. Now,
this is where the fun begins.
So as we always do in these videos, let's start by looking at the world of Darth Bane, Path of Destruction. We'll look at the factions, planets, and concepts that make up this world and compare and contrast them with their canon counterparts. The Dark Age of the Galactic Republic is a Legends term used to signify the last century of the new Sith Wars, marking the dates from 1100 BBY to 1000 BBY. Also, the term the new Sith Wars refers to a 1,000-year-long conflict between the Jedi and Sith that lasted from 2000 BBY to 1000 BBY. Darth Bane, Path of Destruction takes place from 1003 BBY to 1000 BBY during the waning days of the Dark Age of the Galactic Republic, and the novel ends during the aftermath of the 7th Battle of Ruusan, which I will get into later. But in summary, it's the battle that officially ended both the new Sith Wars and the Dark Age of the Galactic Republic. Basically, I just wanted to clarify what these terms meant because I will be referencing them throughout this video. Brotherhood of Darkness was the most powerful Sith group in place during the end of the Galactic Republic's Dark Age. The group was formed under the former Jedi Master Skier Khan, a political extremist who broke off from the Jedi and the Republic, took on the mantle of Dark Lord of the Sith, and took control of the remaining Sith enclaves with his followers as they destroyed the last few powerful Sith Lords and claimed their territory. Under Khan's rule, there would be supposed Sith equality amongst the members of the Brotherhood of Darkness. Khan dispensed with the ceremonial use of the Darth title and granted all members of the new Sith Council the title Dark Lord of the Sith. In order to challenge the Jedi Order and the Galactic Republic for dominance over the galaxy, the Brotherhood of Darkness established academies where young soldiers would become indoctrinated in the political philosophy of the Sith and taught to be brutal warriors. The most powerful Force sensitives amongst the pupils in the Sith academies were taken to the Korriban Academy for further training amongst the Sith Council. During Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, Bane joins the Brotherhood of Darkness in the midst of their continuing battles against Jedi Lord Hoth's Army of Light, which veers toward a climactic final battle on the planet Ruusan at the end of the novel. The Brotherhood of Darkness is inferred to be canon because of some references to Bane's history, but has only ever been indirectly mentioned. The Army of Light was a literal army of Jedi founded in 1010 BBY by Jedi Lord Hoth in order to combat the Brotherhood of Darkness. Lord Hoth and most of the members of the Army of Light formed the group in opposition to the way the Jedi Council at the time was handling the emergence of the Brotherhood of Darkness and the fall of Skier Khan. The army was made up mostly of Jedi Lords and their followers, plus units of Republic soldiers. Jedi Lords were Jedi that lived on and defended worlds that did not fall under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Republic. Revered for their might, Jedi Lords were heralded as saviors by most of the people on the planets they defended. They were given tributes, palaces, and in some cases political power over the people of their planets. Led by Lord Hoth, the Army of Light crusaded across Sith-controlled space during the final decade of the Dark Age of the Galactic Republic. The Army of Light's final stand came during the 7th Battle of Ruusan, which cost the lives of many Jedi, but put an end to the Brotherhood of Darkness. Similar to the Brotherhood of Darkness, the Army of Light is inferred to be canon and was mentioned in the sourcebook Endless Vigil, a sourcebook for Star Wars Force and Destiny role-playing game. Ruusan is not only one of the most important planets in Darth Bane Path of Destruction, it's one of the most important planets in a multitude of legend stories. Ruusan was originally a promising mining planet, but soon became the location where the Brotherhood of Darkness looked to unite their remaining forces in a last stand against the Army of Light. The climactic 7th Battle of Ruusan ended the Brotherhood of Darkness while also destroying much of the planet's vegetation and civilizations. To commemorate the Jedi that had fallen during the battle, a grand mausoleum was later commissioned and built on the planet. This mausoleum came to be known as the Valley of the Jedi, the importance of which leads us into an entirely other How to Adapt video for another time. When it comes to planets, it seems that for all intents and purposes, nearly every planet that was in Legends at some point is technically considered canon, even without the planet ever actually making an appearance in a canon story. Ruusan is not one such planet, however, as it has been directly mentioned in the Tarkin novel and was featured in multiple issues of Bounty Hunters, an ongoing comic by Ethan Sachs, published by Marvel, as the location that Nakano Lash and Cadelia were hiding on. One of the moons of Ruusan also served as the location of the Skytop Station Separatist listening post in Season 1 of the Clone Wars. The original homeworld of the Sith species and one of the most sacred planets amongst the Sith Order. Korriban also served as the headquarters of the most prominent Sith Academy under the Brotherhood of Darkness, where Darth Bane is ultimately taken and trained by members of the Brotherhood's Sith Council. In canon, our most notable appearance of Korriban was in the Clone Wars when Yoda visits the planet in Season 6, where he encounters our only full canon appearance of Darth Bane himself. The Clone Wars also renamed Korriban to Moraband. The original name Korriban is acknowledged in canon as an ancient term for the planet, but Moraband is the name nearly all canon mentions refer to it as. The Valley of the Dark Lords was an ancient burial ground where many legendary Sith Lords were buried throughout the Order's history, including Marka Ragnos and Naga Sadow. It serves as an important location for Bane as he studies the philosophy of the ancient Sith during and after his time in the Korriban Academy. The Valley of the Dark Lords is not officially canon, but it's a safe bet that Yoda's encounter with Bane's tomb is most likely in the Valley of the Dark Lords if the term itself were to officially become canon. Lahone, also referred to as Rakata or Rakata Prime, serves as an important location for the formation of Bane's Rule of Two philosophy. It's on Lahone that Bane discovers Revan's Sith holocron hidden within the Temple of the Ancients. Bane's studies of Revan's holocron confirmed his instinct to destroy the Brotherhood of Darkness and form a new path for the Sith. Lahone also serves as the location of a climactic duel between Bane and Qasim, who was in essence Bane's Sith master. Lahone does appear in canon, but as Rakata Prime. While we still have never seen a canonical version of Rakata Prime, it is mentioned in an episode of Resistance of all things. Umbria has a small but significant role in Path of Destruction. It serves as the location that Bane meets the healer Caleb after he falls victim to a deadly poison known as Synox. Umbria and Caleb would play a more significant role in the second novel, Darth Bane, The Rule of Two, which will be covered in part 2 of this How to Adapt video. This would normally be in a fully dedicated character section that I usually do in these videos, but, well, there's really only one character from this story with a significant appearance in canon thus far to adapt, and that's Darth Bane himself. As I mentioned in the Korriban segment earlier, Darth Bane's sole appearance in Star Wars canon was as a ghostly apparition when Yoda visits his tomb on Moraband. In the Clone Wars Season 6, Episode 13, Sacrifice, we get the confirmation that Bane created the Rule of Two, and that's about the extent of his appearance. Bane was originally set to appear in the Clone Wars Season 3, Episode 17, Ghosts of Mortis, in a similarly Spectre-like appearance alongside what would have been the first canonical appearance of Darth Revan, but the scene was cut. If you listen to the commentary about the scene with Dave Filoni, he doesn't consider it canon because of the implications for the universe that it proposes as a whole, so I too will not consider it canon for this video. Recently, Bane was mentioned in Charles Soule's Star Wars number 20, which we will be discussing in a later section. In the place where the character section usually is in these types of videos, I want to talk about some key pieces of Star Wars canon lore that have directly impacted how we see a Darth Bane trilogy adaptation unfolding into canon. Star Wars number 20 featured a line by Jedi Master Elzar Mann of the High Republic era that confirmed, quote, "The High Republic was for me a golden age, about 8 centuries after we ended the rule of Sith Lord Darth Bane." So now, after reading that one line as a hopelessly optimistic Star Wars fan, I think it's time for me to venture into the well-known world of reading way too into things. Let's start by looking directly at the specifics of the quote itself, which has, for me, a few very interesting words in it. 8 centuries after, and the end of the rule of Sith Lord Darth Bane. The first part, the 8 centuries part, ties directly into the timeline of Darth Bane Path of Destruction. As I mentioned earlier, the bulk of Path of Destruction's narrative takes place over the course of 3 years from 1003 BBY to 1000 BBY. The beginning of the High Republic Initiative starts in 232 BBY, exactly 200 years before the Phantom Menace. So that doesn't exactly line up with Legends. However, this version of Elzar Mann is undoubtedly older than he is in Phase 1 of the High Republic, so we could venture to guess that this version of Elzar was closer to the 200 BBY version, which would make a little more sense for the Legends timeline. Although in the long run, it's really just semantics, and the good news is that right now in canon, the story of Darth Bane takes place around the same time as it does in the original Darth Bane trilogy. The part that gives me a greater pause as someone attempting to adapt the Darth Bane trilogy into canon is the second phrase, "ended the rule of Sith Lord Darth Bane." My first thought was that this was directly referencing the 7th Battle of Ruusan and the destruction of the Brotherhood of Darkness, orchestrated by Bane, that the Jedi at the end of Path of Destruction assumed wiped out all remaining Sith Lords. The direct mention of ending Darth Bane, whom the Jedi in Path of Destruction don't realize was the architect of their victory, makes me think that this is instead referring to the incident at Umbria from the second novel. This incident involves Darth Bane's apprentice Darth Zana using her Force sorcery to put a hex on her cousin Daravit, driving him insane and making him confront the Jedi only for them to kill him. The Jedi then leave Umbria believing he was in fact Bane, the Sith Lord they were searching for, while Zana successfully hid her master and her from the Jedi. If this was the case, it would more significantly mess with the dates on the timeline from Legends. But again, the word "about" is used in the quote, so the quote isn't exactly accurate. I do want to address the importance of using the word "rule" here, though. The word "rule" makes me think that Canon Bane might be portrayed as more of a conqueror rather than a cunning seeker of knowledge and power. If Bane were to be made a flashy conqueror bent on ruling the galaxy, that would seem to defeat the whole purpose of the Rule of Two. So for that part, I'm really going to hope it's just semantics rather than some master plan by Lucasfilm to fundamentally change an extremely important part of a character's philosophy that has remained consistent over the last 23 years. Okay, time to talk about the lightning-filled elephant in the room when it comes to anything Sith-related that we can do in canon moving forward. Since the release of The Rise of Skywalker, one of the most intriguing new pieces of lore added to the Sith mythology has been the hidden world of Exegol, and its importance to Darth Sidious and the Sith Eternal's master plan. In my opinion, in order to justify why Exegol was chosen as the base of operations for Palpatine's final order, further development needs to be given to the planet as we build the canon history and legacy of the Sith prior to Palpatine's reign. As of now, the extent of our canon knowledge of the world was that it was known to the ancient Jedi such as Klee the Elder, author of the sacred Jedi text Ramahagon, as one of the oldest Sith fortress worlds and the chief location of the massive underground Sith shipyard forges. An adaptation of the Darth Bane trilogy would be the perfect place to begin to tie Exegol into the legacy and lore of the ancient Sith. Maybe it was the main shipyard and forge of the Brotherhood of Darkness's fleet. Or during the time of Bane, it could have been a long-forgotten world where battles from the early Old Republic era, or the beginning of the New Sith Wars, currently in canon referred to as the Jedi-Sith War, were fueled by the might of Exegol's naval production. It could even be the location where a canon version of the Star Forge from the Knights of the Old Republic was created. And if it had a past significant history with Revan like the Star Forge, it could be the planet Bane goes to in the story to retrieve Revan's holocron. Basically, what I'm getting at is that Exegol has the ability to be involved in a variety of possibly important events in the history of the Jedi-Sith conflict, which would provide it with greater importance and justification for Palpatine's decision to build the Final Order fleet there. One of the most recent indicators of the viability of directly adapting the pre-Phantom Menace Star Wars stories from Legends to canon has been the current world building being done in the High Republic Initiative that is currently wrapping up Phase 1 as of the recording of this video. and in Phase 2 is looking to tell stories as far into the past as 350 years prior to the Phantom Menace. The stories told in this time period have been quite exciting considering that this time period in Star Wars has hardly ever been touched in either canon or Legends. However, with the new world building being done in canon for this time period, one of the major pieces of lore that contradicts much of what we know of the Legends Star Wars galaxy prior to the Phantom Menace is that hyperspace travel during the High Republic isn't well established in the Mid-Rim and Outer Rim. As late as 200 years before the Phantom Menace, wealthy hyperspace prospecting families such as the Santekas and the Grafs are competing to chart safe hyperspace lanes across the galaxy for the expanding Republic. And if you've read Light of the Jedi, you know that part of the Nihil plot against the Jedi and the Republic is the destabilization of the hyperspace lanes during the Great Disaster, creating a growing fear and hesitation about traveling toward the Outer Rim. On top of that, the fact that only 200 years before the Phantom Menace, the Republic is still attempting to expand their authority to the unknown regions points to a drastically slower rate of progress for the people and civilizations of canon Star Wars versus Legends Star Wars. For example, Knights of the Old Republic takes place nearly 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, and most of the technology and iconography of the time looks and feels quite similar to that of the prequel era. That's not to mention hundreds of other stories told during the dense period of the Old Republic era that makes up nearly all of the pre-Rule of Two Star Wars Legends events that span over the course of 24,000 years from 25,053 BBY to 1,000 BBY, with the majority of those events happening between 5,000 and 1,000 BBY. It's an absurd amount of time for a futuristic civilization to go from advancing rather quickly to grinding to a screeching halt for almost 5,000 years, which brings me to my final point, which I know will be controversial, but here we go. As I said earlier, the Old Republic era of Legends is home to hundreds of wonderful Star Wars stories that span tens of thousands of years. And they really don't need to. For the sake of this video and all of the other videos I do in the future about Legends stories that take place prior to the events of Darth Bane, Path of Destruction, I propose that all the important events of this 5,000 plus year timeline be condensed into a much more manageable and realistic 2,000 year or less period called the Jedi-Sith War that allows the material to more significantly affect and build off of each subsequent story that's told and lets new conflicts more naturally feed off one another as the politics and technology of the era grow and develop. That means major galactic conflicts such as the Mandalorian Wars, the Star Forge, the New Sith Wars, the Dark Age of the Galactic Republic, and more would all occur closer together in the time span. I don't want to go too deep into this in this video, as I'll save it for another video about a story that's more engulfed in the conflicts of this era. But I did want to mention it because it reframes the context for what type of time period the Bane era stories cap off in my version of the adaptation of Bane to canon. Okay, so finally, the part most of you have been waiting for. Here is the way I would retell Darth Bane Path of Destruction as adapted to canon. As I said in the Thrawn trilogy video, the best way to capture the purest essence of this story would be to readapt it back into a book trilogy as it was originally told. However, with my film background, I'm much more predisposed to view these stories in a live-action film context. On top of that, the Darth Bane trilogy is a lot more primed for a live-action adaptation considering there are no limitations, whereas a completely faithful adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy would have had to deal with either de-aging or recasting the original trilogy cast and so on. So, without further ado, here is the story of Darth Bane, Path of Destruction in canon. Bane was born as Dessel, or Des for short, on the planet Apatros, a poor mining world where he grew up working in the mines. After killing an angry Republic soldier whom Des beat in sabacc in self-defense, he was forced to leave Apatros to join the Brotherhood of Darkness as a foot soldier in the battles during the end of the Jedi-Sith War. Des rose through the ranks quickly, and eventually took charge of a unit called the Gloom Walkers. At the Battle of Thasira, Des led a mutiny against a superior officer who knowingly walked the Gloom Walkers into an ambush. Des unknowingly used the Force to enhance his abilities and win the battle for the Sith forces. Des was reported for his actions, but instead of being court-martialed, Des attracted the attention of Kopesh, one of the instructors at the Korriban Sith Academy, who took Des there for training.
Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion I gain strength. Through strength I gain power. Through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken. The Force shall set me free.
Upon starting his new life on Korriban, Des took on the name Bane. Immediately, Bane developed a strong interest in studying the ancient texts of the dark side, but he was discouraged from his studies by the Sith Lords at the Academy in favor of improving his physical and force abilities. Bane initially excelled in his combat training, and was even goaded into killing his first rival in the Academy, which drew the attention of many of the most powerful Sith Lords, including Cortus and Qasim. Bane, however, was shaken from this experience, and withdrew from the Force until he desperately challenged the Academy's top student Sirac, and was brutally beaten to near death. Bane was then shunned by his fellow students and the Sith Masters, which led him to again take an interest in the Sith archives. Bane began to question the teachings of the current Brotherhood of Darkness in favor of some of the ancient ways, and especially aboard Skir Khan's banishment of the Darth title. The knowledge Bane gained from the archives rejuvenated him. He dove back into his training by secretly taking lightsaber combat lessons from Qasim, while simultaneously deepening his knowledge of Force techniques during his secret sessions with the up-and-coming student Githany, whom Bane became romantically involved with. Bane eventually challenged Sirac again, this time handily defeating him and humiliating him. Bane was praised by his secret master Qasim, who bestowed upon him the lightsaber of his former master, whom Qasim had killed in a test of strength. This story left an indelible mark on Bane's worldview and helped guide his formation of the Rule of Two. Even after defeating Sirac, Bane was still admonished by Lord Cortus for his interest in the Sith archives, which led to Bane angrily leaving the Academy for the Valley of the Dark Lords, where Bane hoped to find wisdom from the spirits of the ancient Sith. Upon discovering that none of the spirits of the ancient Sith still resided in the Valley of the Dark Lords, Bane concluded that the Brotherhood's flawed emphasis on order and equality amongst their members kept them from truly embracing the dark side, and it was the Brotherhood's weakness that repelled the spirits of the ancient Sith from the planet.
Equality is a myth to protect the weak. Some of us are strong in the Force, others are not. Only a fool believes otherwise.
Bane returned to the Academy, where he was ambushed by Sirac in a final attempt to reclaim his lost pride from Bane's defeat. Bane and Githany defeated Sirac's allies, and Bane, opening himself fully to the dark side for the first time, killed Sirac, denounced Cortus, Khan, and the Brotherhood, took on the title of Darth, and left Korriban for the planet Exegol, the supposed home of an ancient Sith citadel that Bane read about in the archives. Upon arriving on Exegol, Bane was struck by the immense dark energy radiating from the planet's surface. Pure power Bane felt on Exegol further convinced Bane of the Brotherhood's weakness. Bane landed near the ancient Sith citadel and began to explore the fortress. He discovered a vast shipyard capable of producing tens of thousands of vessels that would have overwhelmed those of the Jedi. The star charts to find the planet and the history detailing the value of Exegol were right there in the archives for the taking. Yet another example of the Brotherhood's foolishness. Bane searched further into the citadel and discovered the fabled throne of the Sith, said to be built by the first Sith Emperor himself, after the Dark Jedi conquered the native Sith species and created the Sith Order. Built into the architecture of the throne were slots for a dozen Sith holocrons. However, only one remained. Finally, the knowledge Bane desired. Bane unlocked the holocron, and before him appeared Darth Revan. Revan's holocron gave Bane more knowledge of the dark side than he had received from all his years at the Academy on Korriban. Through the holocron, Bane had also learned that the Sith shipyard forges on Exegol were built over 2,000 years ago by the Rakata. The Rakata were an advanced race known as the Builders, and created the first galactic empire known as the Rakatan Infinite Empire. They enslaved hundreds of peoples and worlds, using those conquered to create deadly ancient weapons such as the Star Forge. The Rakatan Infinite Empire was eventually defeated by the rise of the Sith Empire, which resulted in the Rakata being forced into servitude for the Sith, who exploited the Rakata's knowledge to create wonders like the Exegol shipyard forges. After spending weeks absorbing Revan's wisdom and philosophies, Bane concluded the Brotherhood of Darkness must be destroyed in order for the Sith to finally defeat the Jedi, and the Rule of Two was formed.
Two there shall be, no more, no less. One to embody the power, the other to crave it.
After a Force nightmare convinced Githany of Bane's intention to destroy the Brotherhood, Githany revealed to Khan that Bane had gone to the ancient Sith world of Exegol. Khan dispatched Qasim, who used the star charts found in the ancient archives to travel to Exegol to kill Bane and end the threat. Bane was able to use his knowledge of the Citadel to defeat his former master, perpetuating the cycle started by Qasim. Bane then sent word of Qasim's death to Khan, with instructions on how to perform the ritual of the Thought Bomb, taught to Bane by Revan as a peace offering. Despite Khan's misgivings, Bane assured him that it was the key to defeating the Jedi. Bane also feigned a desire to return to the Brotherhood, and set up a meeting with Khan on the planet Umbria. However, Khan already believed his victory over the Jedi on Ruusan was a near certainty. The Sith had blockaded the planet completely, preventing Jedi Master Farfalla from returning to Ruusan's surface with Jedi reinforcements for Lord Hoth's Army of Light. Instead of meeting with Bane himself, Khan dispatched Githany to Umbria, who assured Khan she was capable of assassinating Bane. When Githany arrived on Umbria, she met Bane with a poison kiss. Initially believing he was strong enough in the dark side to overcome the poison, Bane played along and discussed his new philosophies with Githany, hoping she would share his vision for the future of the Sith and become his first Sith apprentice. Githany, however, remained convinced of Khan's leadership and the power of the Brotherhood. Githany left Umbria only for Bane to capitulate to the masked, more deadly Synox poisoning she had hidden behind the taste of a lesser poison on her lips. Bane collapsed. Near death, Bane was able to kill 2 small scavenger boys and their father who had happened upon Bane's lightsaber, while simultaneously absorbing their pain and suffering to give him strength in the dark side. Bane eventually stumbled upon the home of a healer named Caleb, who initially refused to help Bane, but eventually gave in once Bane threatened to torture his young daughter. Once healed, Bane headed for Ruusan, where he surprised the Dark Lords as they were planning their final assault against the Jedi. Bane mocked and ridiculed Khan for his weakness, and convinced the Dark Lords to unite in a ritual known as a Force Wave, which would centralize their power through Bane to create an inferno, which forced the Jedi to retreat before Khan cut the ritual short, afraid of the power the Dark Lords had given to Bane. Khan then led his forces to pursue the fleeing Jedi. All Sith followed, except for Bane and Cortus, who revealed to Bane his intent to join Bane's vision and rule the Brotherhood at Bane's side. Bane was initially intrigued by Cortus's proposal, but was disgusted by the Dark Lord's small-minded desire to perpetuate the Brotherhood. Bane rebuked Cortus, then choked him to death with the Force.
Honor is a fool's prize. Glory is of no use to the dead.
Meanwhile, the Sith fleet continued to orbit Ruusan in a full blockade. While Khan and his army were still off pursuing the retreating Jedi, Bane contacted the fleet's admiral and had them engage the Jedi forces, which allowed the then previously blockaded Jedi forces to break the Sith line and arrive on Ruusan to lend Lord Hoth's army aid. Khan was forced to retreat, turning his certain victory into an utter defeat. Khan returned to the Sith camp where Bane revealed what he had done, but further goaded the Dark Lord into using the Thought Bomb to destroy the Jedi. Khan led the rest of the Dark Lords into a cave where they attempted to lure the Jedi into a final confrontation, where Khan would unleash the Thought Bomb and annihilate the Army of Light once and for all. Many Jedi, including Lord Hoth, were lured into the cave, where Khan and his Dark Lords unleashed the Thought Bomb. Unbeknownst to them, though, it annihilated every Force sensitive in the cave, including what remained of the Brotherhood. Bane stood a far distance away and sensed that the Thought Bomb had been detonated. Khan and the Dark Lords were gone. He had succeeded in his plan. All that was left was to find a worthy apprentice.
2 there shall be, no more, no less. One to embody the power, the other to crave it.
Thank you all so much for watching the second episode of How to Adapt into Canon. These videos are a labor of love, so I hope you guys all really enjoy them and appreciate all the work that was put into it. If you did enjoy the video, please hit that like button down below. It'll really help us out with the channel, and subscribe for Star Wars content minimum 3 days a week. As I said at the beginning, you'll want to check out our other videos this week. We will be talking about the Book of Boba Fett on Wednesday and Fridays, as we always do, and this week we will also be having comic reviews on Thursdays. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.